Mr. Zulkarnain Abdul Rahim.
Police interview suspects to find out what happened. It is not unusual that some suspects may be less than forthcoming during interviews. Interviewers have to assess the situation and decide on the questions to be asked. It is accepted that young suspects may require more support during interviews. Thus, as far as possible, police will interview young suspects in a police station away from their schools or place of employment. Should interviews need to be conducted at schools or places of employment, police will avoid drawing unnecessary attention or causing embarrassment to the young suspect. For instance, police may appear in plain clothes and use unmarked vehicles. Young suspects are interviewed by the police in the presence of an independent and trained volunteer under the Appropriate Adult Scheme for Young Suspects, otherwise known as AAYS. The current age threshold of AAYS is 16 years old. Thus, AAs, meaning appropriate adults, will be activated for all suspects under the age of 16. From April 2023, we will be increasing the age threshold to include 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds and will target to complete the expansion by October 2023. This can only be done when the number of appropriate adult volunteers is increased, and we are now working to build up the appropriate adult volunteer pool. Police will notify parents on the arrest and investigation of young suspects at the earliest time possible, unless doing so could jeopardize investigations. Thank you.
Mr. Zulkarnain.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm grateful to MOS for the explanation. Back in November 2021, I asked the PQ on young suspects and measures. I'm heartened that the AAYS threshold will be increased from 16 years old to 17 years old come October 2023. I have a question on the limited pool of AAs and how we can perhaps increase the limited pool. Would the ministry consider by default having parents as AAs? Secondly, whether in terms of training of AAs, whether we can look into enhancement of the training, especially with the soon to be establishment of the Public Defender's Office, whether the rights of young suspects can further be briefed by PDOs, or AAs can be further trained by PDO in the future. Thank you.
I thank the member for his supplementary questions. The AA, the appropriate adult, is a neutral and independent party who provides emotional support to the interviewees and facilitates communication. So the appropriate adult would thus need to be an independent person. We are definitely looking to increase the number of volunteers to the scheme. The member had suggested parents. The parents of the suspects may have a conflict of interest or may be perceived to have a conflict of interest. So we will not allow parents of the suspects themselves to be the appropriate adult, the AA, in those circumstances. But where there are parents who want to be volunteers or as an AA to suspects who are not related to them, then obviously this is something that we would encourage. With regards to training, currently the volunteers, the AAs, they go through structured training. They undergo a one-day training session which is conducted by the Singapore Children's Society, and the training is supported by the Association of Criminal Lawyers of Singapore, the Law Society of Singapore, and the Attorney General's Chambers. On the point about whether or not we should involve the Public Defender's Office, the PDO, currently where there where the suspects are concerned, we use a pamphlet of rights to inform all suspects of their rights prior to interviews, and the pamphlet is available to all police stations. They are in very noticeable locations in prominent areas, and this helps to standardize the way that suspects are informed of their rights during the investigation process. And where suspects want to further obtain legal assistance or advice on their rights, this can be done through the Public Defender's Office or their own lawyers at various points of the investigation process, except that the lawyer will not be permitted to attend during the interview. So I'd just like to assure the member that there is structured training made available to volunteers, the AA, and that the young suspects will have access to help should they require it during all points of the investigation. Thank you.